Is the UK going to start getting more and more involved in the Ukraine and Russia war? Some of you may have seen, I've done a video on it previously, that roughly 15 drones entered Polish airspace and Poland had to shoot down these drones. They have also sent 40,000 troops to their eastern border. This is also while Russia and Belarus are playing the 2025 war games. And off the back of this, NATO and the UK said they're happy to send in fighter jets to shoot down any further incursions into Polish or any other nation's airspace. Have a look at this. RAF Typhoon jets ready to shoot down drones over Poland, the UK says. NATO is responding with unity and strength to Russian threats, says John Healey. RAF Typhoon jets will be deployed within days to shoot down drones over Poland and other NATO allies in Eastern Europe if necessary, after last week's incursion of 19 uncrewed Russian aircraft into Poland. It did come out, apparently these were non-armed drones, okay, from Russia. But no one actually knows that until they've actually been shot down, or even worse, they hit their targets. This actually shut down civilian airports within Poland. They genuinely thought it was an actual threat. The British fighters based in Coningsby in Lincolnshire will join NATO's new Eastern Sentry mission, okay, which was just recently set up after this happened, working alongside the French, German and Danish counterparts who are acting as reinforcement for Dutch F-35s and Polish F-16. So some serious firepower going in here. They're not messing around. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, said NATO was responding with unity and strength to the threats and that Typhoons would be ready to attack Russian drones flying over NATO countries if required to do so. It's good, they're ready to make a stand, but then what does this mean for the future? Is this NATO, UK and other nations getting involved in the Ukraine and Russia war? How will Putin respond? You know, he's already sent over threats. If anyone gets involved, then there will be consequences. But this is obviously slightly different, considering that these drones are starting to head towards and get inside Polish airspace. So it's not directly involved with Ukraine. What is Russia doing here? Are these drones that have just gone off course? They were unarmed. For those that don't know, Russia is always trying to test other nations, especially NATO allies, response times, trying to work out their tactics, their SOPs. So more than likely, he's trying to work out what NATO and Poland would do, obviously Poland being so close to Russia. What would they actually do? How would they respond? What are their response times? All the drones were shot down. So now he can sort of look at Poland and possibly NATO's capabilities and how they will respond to a threat. That's normally what happens. He's just playing games. He's trying to mess around with NATO. But could this mean something more serious in the future? Possibly. They go on to say, if you've got drones that are putting Polish lives at risk, even though people are saying these were unarmed, you don't know that obviously until they land or hit a target, then NATO will take the action to take them out, talking about Article 5. Healey said Aden Typhoons were part of a broader mission to defend NATO airspace. That is the whole point of NATO, okay? That's why Ukraine are trying to get into NATO and be a NATO member. The minister was speaking during a visit to an unused industrial site in Swindon, where Tekiva, a drone manufacturer, is planning to build a factory, invest up to 400 million and create hundreds of jobs supplying reconnaissance drones to European militaries. Okay, Ukraine, Russia, and other sort of situations that are going on around the world, Iran, Israel, have shown the capabilities of drones. Are they perfect? No. Are they great for just causing confusion and hitting mass targets and doing some damage? Yes, they are. They're cost effective, they're small, and you can have them in the hundreds and thousands and make it really difficult for them to shoot down. So if you send hundreds of drones in, it's very likely some of them or most of them will hit a target. So it's great. The UK do need to get involved. We need to start manufacturing not only our own drones, but obviously for other nations and European militaries to basically make some money back. Over the weekend, Romania became the second NATO ally in Eastern Europe to detect Russian drones crossing into its airspace in a week. For those that don't know yet, it happened to Poland and then Romania. And Healy said the Typhoon missions would extend operations to the country if deemed necessary, showing their support to NATO. He said they are deployed as part of the NATO Eastern Sentry air policing, which has just been recently set up in light of this. What NATO decides to do and where it decides to deploy them will be for NATO. That's part of our contribution to our alliance. Okay, so it's not the UK deciding where these drones or fighter jets or where the soldiers will be placed, airmen. It is all down to NATO working together to support Poland, Romania and any other allies. Last Wednesday, 19 unarmed Russian drones crossed the border into Poland as part of a broader attack on Ukraine. Apparently a broader attack on Ukraine, so they say, prompting NATO to scramble jets and activate Patriot air defence systems in a major defensive operation. Okay, this is huge. Okay, Poland have actually had to defend themselves against Russia, whether it was a mistake and they were intended for Ukraine, or whether Putin was generally trying to see how Poland would react. Though there were no casualties, only 3 or 4 of the drones were shot down, raising questions about the effectiveness of Western air defences. In response, NATO's military commander called for an increase in the number of fighter jets available for air policing. Okay, like I said, this is the issue. 19 drones, it's not many for the amount you can actually get for the cost of them. And only 3 to 4 of them were actually shot down. So it shows if they were all armed, carrying any sort of munitions, the destruction and the issues that it could have caused for Poland, especially as it looked like apparently the drones were heading for civilian airports. On Friday, NATO leaders announced the creation of Operation Eastern Sentry, as I said, a plan to better protect the skies over alliance members in Eastern Europe, starting with Poland. The alliance's most senior military chief said NATO was bringing additional resources to bear in the effort. The US, however, have stayed away from this. Okay, they're still talking about not putting troops into Ukraine if a peace deal is happening. They're still saying Russian is a friendly friend that they just haven't made yet. Has not announced any additional comments in line with previous statements made by Donald Trump and his defense secretary Pete Hegsworth that European members of NATO are expected to take the lead on defending the continent against Russia aggression and spillover from the war in Ukraine. We can go on here. Healy said that the Typhoons would be operational involved within days. Okay, so these guys are actually going to be operational and there to get involved and shoot down drones and basically defend NATO allies if need be. Okay, this is fully live, a hot operational mission if need be, where it takes about 90 minutes to reach from Lincolnshire, Poland. So it takes about 90 minutes to go from Lincolnshire to Poland if they will, if the QRF are called upon. They are supported by a dedicated Voyager air-to-air refueling aircraft. Okay, so they are deployed and they are in the area and they start to run low on fuel. You can get basically the Voyager to refuel them while in the air. Pretty cool to see. You should watch it. The British effort would be supported by 400 military personnel in the UK. Okay, just because fighter jets are going, which is 1 pilot per fighter jet, you still need the team that basically on the logistical side, the supporting role to those fighter jets. They need technical servicing, they need munitions putting on them, they need refueling, they need cleaning. And then you've got all the guys that, you know, the higher chain of command that have got to overwatch this and basically command these missions alongside NATO. It's not just a few planes in the air, it's a significant operation, part of a much bigger NATO exercise on the eastern flank. It's not really just an exercise though, is it? This is getting serious, whether it goes from there. There was no further update on whether the UK believed that the Russian drone incursion into Poland was deliberate. Okay, if you say so. Healy said there's no firm confirmation of intent, but in the end, that's not the point. It's still reckless and it's still dangerous. It was, he added, straight out of Putin playbook. Of course it is. Straight out of his playbook. He wants to see how you react. He wants to see what your thoughts are. What are you going to do next? Can I get through your air defense systems? Yes, I can. How long did it take you to scramble the jets? How long did it take you to notice? How close did the drones get before you even noticed that they were there? It's also just playing with your mind. Okay, so Russian have sent drones in. What are they planning next? Now we've got to start coming up with even more contingencies. Are they going to send more drones and the next drone's going to be armed? Are there going to be missiles coming our way? Are they going to send even more troops into Belarus? Are they going to get closer to the Polish border? That's what has got you thinking now. Everyone thought this was contained into Russia, into Ukraine, and it may be contained into Ukraine, but he's now playing with your minds. And now the UK is getting involved. What does that mean next? He doesn't want the UK or another NATO allies to get involved. So is this him trying to drag him in to do something where he can turn around and go, well, you've just got involved now, I can do this? That's the very interesting thing about this, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Are Ukraine going to start getting into war in this Eastern war between Ukraine, Russia, and possibly Poland and Romania now? Please do comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.